in my view, the basis for Kushner's trips to the Middle East, you can probably divide into two parts. One, of course, is his support for Israel and trying to put an end to the Palestinian problem for the Israelis by getting Arab states to disavow support for the Palestinians and to ensure that their interests, or the rulers' interests rather, are best served by trade and diplomatic deals with the Israelis. The apartheid entity has been working for years to establish relationships with the United Arab Emirates. And apparently, from what I've seen, additionally, they've been trying to do the same thing in a number of other countries. Certainly, there's been plenty of cooperation between the Israelis and the Saudis. It wasn't that long ago that the Saudis permitted El Al overflights to India, and they permitted the overflight of the plane carrying Israeli officials and Jared Kushner and Avi Berkowitz and other people from Israel, the apartheid entity, to the United Arab Emirates. But I think the major point of all of this, I think the Palestinian problem is simply a cover, is that Trump is reacting to his repeated defeats in the United Nations in attempting to put more sanctions on Iran and trying a snapback of the weapons sanctions that are going to expire on Iran in October of this year, just next month. So I think what they're trying to do is show that Trump is doing something to Iran and bypassing the United Nations, bypassing the wishes of the American people, although I think there are far too many Americans who support Israel, and its goals. And the whole issue is to ring Iran with a group of hostile Arab states under the thumb of Israel and the United States and Saudi Arabia. Certainly the Gulf Cooperation Council, which was set up by the Saudis back, I think, in the 1980s, they are some of the most repressive, repulsive, and medieval governments in the world. And they oppress their own people. They object to any kind of democracy. They object to giving any kind of aid and comfort to their Shia population. And they all detest and despise Iran and will do anything to harm Iran. And what Trump and Israel are doing is working hard to present a united front against Iran throughout the Arabian Peninsula. You've got American bases, of course, in Kuwait, and in Bahrain, and the home of the Fifth Fleet, which has no business being in the Persian Gulf to begin with. So I think you're going to see American bases or Arab bases all along the southern shore of the Persian Gulf, and they're all going to be aimed at Iran. Certainly at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, there's some 10,000 American servicemen, and it is has runways long enough for the largest American bombers, such as the antiquated B-52. So the whole purpose then, of course, is to ring Iran with fire, either American fire or Israeli and Arab fire. I can't see how any Arab state can do this, but then these are not Arab states. They are statelets. They are left over from the British occupation of the region in the 19th century. And they are basically lines drawn on a map rather than real countries. Prior to the discovery of oil, their primary basis for their economy was pearl diving. So I think that you've got these countries that are divorced from their own people, and hopefully in the future, the people will rise up against their oppressive rulers and put an end to this nonsense the Americans and the Israelis have cooked up. But unfortunately, at the present, it seems to be going very well, and Kushner and company are bragging that there are soon more Arab states will be joining the United Arab Emirates. And obviously, you'll see Saudi Arabia in there. They've been coy about what they're going to do. But they are the controlling force in the region, and they've been negotiating secretly with the Israelis for years. So I think that they will eventually get the entire peninsula, with the exception of Yemen, that the Saudis and the Emiratis have not yet destroyed. So unfortunately, it's a very bad future and a very bad scenario. And we can only hope that the people will rise up in the Persian Gulf countries and overthrow their corrupt, incompetent, illegitimate governments, and put an end to this Gulf Cooperation Council.